on this episode 3 of For the Horror of It. Tonight we were doing Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and I'm here talking to Eric from Hey Internet. Eric here, and a film that he likes a lot. He's even wearing a hat, and he's got a few things he's going to talk about. It's just kind of just off from left field. I just decided to do Killer Clowns, talk to Karen about it, and she thought it was cool. So I just want to ask you a couple of questions, like what was
Yeah,
your
happy to
first
be here.
experience? What was your very first experience with Killer Clowns? You remember the first time you ever seen it?
I do. I remember age wise I was probably 10 or 11, and I remember my mom, because my mom, like I've said many times, she's the one that got me into sci-fi, got me into horror. And she picked me up from school one day, and she was driving back, and she was telling me, she says, "Eric, you don't believe this weird movie that I saw like late at night, you know it was about these clowns," and she was explaining the shadow puppet scene.
Uh huh.
So I was getting more and more into horror. I was finally getting into Nightmare on Elm Street and The Exorcist and stuff like that. But this sounded goofy as shit, and I'd already watched and fell in love with Critters, and the
Uh huh.
Kyoto brothers did that. So
Right.
I was just hooked. And then when we finally saw it at the video store, rented it right away, fell in love right away, and I've loved it ever since.
Yeah. I remember seeing it too. Gosh, let me see. Let me see. It came out when I was 15. I must have seen it by the time I was 16 or 17. And I didn't know what the hell to make of it. I grew up on The Exorcist and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It just has something about it that no matter what kind of horror you like, everybody, what I mean, people are anal about this horror and that kind of horror, but for some
Right.
reason, everyone likes Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Why?
There's
What do you think that is?
there's a little bit of for everyone in this, whether it's the sci-fi premise, because it to me it takes me back to like the 50s with the Blob and stuff like that. So you have that, you have comic relief characters. You're either going to love or hate the Terenzi brothers. Me, I'm
Right.
more a fan of Royal Dano because I love westerns, and he was in House 2, stuff like that. I love him as the country bumpkin with his basset hound. um the design of the creatures, like I have a couple things. Just I got this little figure here of
Oh, cool.
Shorty.
Oh yeah.
Just the design, the
It's
wrinkles
the
and stuff
gloves.
like that. And each killer clown is different. This one's really
Yeah.
short. This one's really tall. It's just so comedic. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and stuff. And it's also got like here's a pint glass of mine.
Oh, cool.
It's just
That's
got like
pretty
a
cool.
sense of dread to it as well. You know what I mean?
Right.
There are some really, really dark, creepy shit in this. So there's a little bit of everyone. And it's got like an 80s MTV feel with the music,
Yeah.
especially the theme song, stuff like that. So there's a little bit of for everyone, even if you're into cheese, 50s sci-fi, straight up horror, because there's some really, there's a couple gruesome scenes in my opinion. There's a little bit of everyone for everyone. There's something that will pull you in no matter what.
Yeah. I remember it scared the hell out of my ex-wife.
Yeah.
My son's mom. My
Hmm.
16-year-old mom,
Hmm.
because she has that fear of clowns anyway. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but she has that fear anyway. And for
Hmm.
some reason, any little part of that movie would just scare the hell out of her. She just flat out refused to watch that movie.
Hmm.
Like, she
It,
found it to be, of all of the clown movies, she found it to be the scariest for some reason. And I think it's because of that,
uh,
what you're talking about.
yeah, I think it's the way they look and just the animatronics, because it's guys in suits, but the Kyoto brothers also had the animatronics with the lips and stuff like that. So it doesn't seem as real. You know what I mean? It seems more monstrous.
Yeah, yeah, and they got some animation and some cool special effects the way they do it in there too.
Hmm. Oh,
One
yeah.
first thing I noticed about this was Grant Kramer, the one that plays the male lead.
Yep, Mike.
I remember
Yep.
him seeing in a show called Hard Bodies, and
Hmm.
also it's Tim Jeffries in it from Fright Night, which is the
Right
first
night.
movie the Weaver did together, and he
Hmm.
plays like the geek in it too. I can't remember who the other guy is, but did you ever see that film, Hard Bodies?
I no, I knew of it. I knew of it because I knew of Grant Kramer, but I'd never ever seen it. There's
Yeah,
some recognizable people in this movie. You know what I mean? You get John Vernon from fucking Animal House. You know what I mean?
right.
As Chief Mooney, and probably one of my
That's a big
first
deal.
one of my first crushes ever, Suzanne Snyder, who plays Debbie. She was also in Night of the Creeps, and she's also in Weird Science with Judy Arnson from Friday the 13th Final Chapter. So it's definitely got
Curly
a
did
lot of.
too.
That's right. So it's just got a lot of it's got a good cast in my opinion too. A lot of recognizable people.
One of the scenes that my son talks about is one of the creepy. One of his favorite scenes is when you hear a knock at the door, and she answers the door, and
Hmm.
he's standing, and it's like talking like her mom. No, it's talking like Grant Kramer, so she
Yeah,
thinks it's Grant Kramer. Opens
yeah.
up the door.
And
That to me is one of the creepiest scenes.
and you hear him just say Debbie, Debbie
Yeah,
in Mike's voice over and over again, but you see the lips curl and move.
it's really weird. I've been thinking about this since we decided to do it. I mean, I've tried to think. That's why I wanted to do. Remember, we talked about it a while back. I just asked Eric, and you can
Hmm.
see here at the bottom what that I'm actually doing that now. He was going to be the first one to hell with it. You'll be the second one, and probably
Hmm.
for the most fun one that we'll ever do.
Hmm.
Because usually I go straight for horror.
Right.
Um, but this is one like I said, even the hardest core. You know what I mean? But I think this is one of the funnest.
Absolutely.
Like I wouldn't even call it horror really. I'm not sure where you put it.
It's more science fiction than horror, but it's sci-fi horror to me. But it's also a sci-fi horror comedy because
So creative.
that's what they take. That's what I love about this is the writers, the directors, the Kyoto brothers. They don't forget they're fucking clowns, so they
Right.
have that creativity to use. When Debbie's trying to jump out of her window, they're down there with the little
Yeah.
the thing to catch her, like and they're dressed as firemen, like if you would jump
Yeah,
out
the
of a burning
circus.
building. The
Yeah.
creativity. They got hunting dogs made out of balloon animals, shit like that. It doesn't lose its fun. You know what I mean? It's very very self aware, and that's
Right.
what I think helps it be so enjoyable because you go into the movie. It's called Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Are you really going to
Right.
take a movie with that title 100% serious? You can't.
Right.
You know what you're getting. It's like going to see Howard the Duck. It's not going to be
Yeah.
fucking Casablanca. You know what I mean? Tone wise, you have to know what you're getting into, and then you can chill out a little bit, and then just take a deep breath and just have some fucking fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you were saying, it's very self-aware. It knows what it is, and it doesn't try to
Exactly.
be more than that. It doesn't try to be less than that.
Hmm.
Like I love how the ship is like the tent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I'm looking forward. I'm going to watch it before we do it on Tuesday.
Hmm.
Hopefully, you have to whip by and say hello during all of that.
Oh yeah.
Um, do you think do you think your love for it has grown, or do you think you liked it better when you was a kid, or do you think it's something that even grows as you get older?
Um, it grew as I got older because I could appreciate it more because as I got older, I got more into learning the behind the scenes stuff, the
Yeah,
practical effects, what goes into making a movie. And my respect for the Kyoto brothers just grew. You know what I mean? Seeing what they had to do for the different clowns. Like by the end of this movie, the finale takes place in the spaceship, and the three leads they're surrounded by dozens and dozens and dozens of clowns. If you look at it, every single clown is different.
hmm
So
you
just
got.
what had to go into making this silly little movie, my respect for it grew. You know what I mean?
Did they
So
write
I
it?
I think as I got older, I grew to enjoy it a hell of a lot more. And as
Yeah,
I got older, I got more into horror and I can enjoy the creepiness of it, because it's not really a
yeah,
scary movie, unless you are afraid of clowns, but it definitely doesn't stop with the creep factor with a lot of
yeah.
certain scenes that are in it.
Yeah, it just takes what it already is. What it already is, you can watch it. I'm sure the creators maybe consider it a comedy or just
Hmm.
for fun, or they may even consider it for kids. But all it has to do is be what it is, and it already naturally, like you were saying, has a creep factor about it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Now,
so many scenes.
did it creep you out as a kid, like when you first seen it, or was it just fun from then on, or did it get creepier as you got older?
It got creepier as I got older. As a kid, I was just laughing at the goofy shit. You know what I mean? Popcorn guns. The shadow puppet scene. Um, as I got older, I paid more attention to movies. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And I could, I guess you would say, observe them more. With you know, to a cliche like a fine tooth comb. Especially since becoming a YouTuber, we look at the movies differently when we're trying to air quotes critique a movie, and my
right.
appreciation just grew for it more and more, and the creepiness got worse, air quotes, as I got
Right.
older because I could pick certain things out.
Do you think they'll ever do you think they'll ever consider it a sequel, or do you think they'll ever do one? Do you think they'll ever try to what is that, reboot it or whatever? Do you think they'll ever mess with that? They
Well,
mess with everything else.
the Kyoto brothers are trying to. They've been trying to for fucking decades. And Grant Kramer has been given updates. He says they have a plan where they're going to at least bring back Grant Kramer. Okay,
Right.
the Mike character, and Mike, he says, is now basically kind of like the Crazy Ralph. You know what I mean? He's the only one that's seen it, and he keeps saying that they're coming. Like he's a crazy drunk. They're coming back. The clowns are coming back. The clowns are coming back, and they finally do. So I don't know if Debbie's going to be there or if the other character's going to be there, but they've had this thing planned for decades. It's just getting the funding, just because Hollywood, they want these big fucking blockbusters. You know what I
Right.
mean? They want that type of stuff, or they want reboots, or they want like the David Gordon Green crap. You know what I mean? Let's take a
Mhm.
movie, get rid of the sequels, and just start fresh. And the Kyoto Brothers, if you're not into horror, like deep in horror, you don't know who the fuck is the Kyoto Brothers. You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't
Right.
really have a big name, so that's just trouble with funding. But I think with this fucking video game coming out, it's going to give a rebirth to the Killer Clowns fandom, and I think that might help it because if you've seen previews of that game, the game looks
I've
amazing. It's
I
from the
haven't
same
seen it.
people that did. It's from the same people that did the Friday the 13th online game, and you can
Cool.
either play as a clown or as a survivor, and it's going to be multiplayer, and it looks fucking awesome.
That's cool. When's that supposed to come out?
I don't remember the date yet. They're still tweaking it, and there's just you can just Google it or YouTube it, like 'cause the trailer.
That
Just
might be a
imagine
fun
playing that
thing.
with a bunch of people as the clowns hunting down humans. You know what I mean? It just sounds like a fucking blast.
Got to be a clown. You got to be a
Hmm.
clown, man. I
Hmm.
mean, just like with Jason, you had to be Jason.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because that is one thing about that game. People have complaints about the Friday 13th. The Xbox slash PlayStation game.
Hmm.
They had complaints about that, but one thing they loved being was Jason and going and killing the counselors and coming up
Hmm.
with different ways, different kills. That's cool. Hopefully, you'll be able to, put them in the cocoon of the cotton candy and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. I thought that was one of the most creative things about. I think it's a very creative film.
And that's what I love about this. My favorite creative moment, because they're killing people with cotton candy guns that turns them into cocoons, and that's how they drink their blood. It preserves them and just shit like that.
Right.
When Officer Mooney is turned into the ventriloquist dummy,
Uh
that,
huh.
in my opinion, is the creepiest thing in this film.
Yeah.
And what I think is the best part is the use of sound in this movie. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because you got Mooney sitting on the lap, and he's got blood coming out of his mouth to look like the dummy's mouth. You know what I mean? That's fun. He's got painted rosy cheeks, and they're doing the whole gimmick. But what I love
Right.
is this sound is when Officer Dave, is looking at Mooney, and the clown just pulls his hand out. You don't see, you just hear
Yeah.
noise. You know what I mean? Hand is all blood red, and then the clown off screen puts his hand off screen and just kind of whips the blood off, and you just hear whoosh. That's creepy. That's a use of less is more because it makes your
Right.
mind visualize that blood going everywhere on the ground just to clean his hand up. So that's my
That's what
that's my
comedy.
creepiest moment in that whole fucking movie.
That's why to me that's why comedy to me the funniest comedy is where it's like you hear it but you don't see it. You're like
Mm-hmm.
someone you hear someone bitching. Like for instance in Creep Show when you hear Adrienne Barbeau bitching, remember she's the drunk and she's
Yeah,
wandering around bitching going, oh you son you're that
yeah.
that's funnier than when you see her. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I that's exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Do you one last question? Do
Sure.
you think that Dave character was meant to be as bad at acting as he was? Because to me, that's part of the whole charm of that film. Is that Dave dude is so terrible. He's right there. He's telling him, "I'm not gonna have it." He's just or whatever it is he says.
Um, it's not a knock against Suzanne Schneider because I like her. Other than Suzanne, these other actors and John Vernon, I haven't seen them in anything. I've never seen
Right,
Hard
right,
Bodies. I think the Kyoto brothers, and this is just me, okay? I think they had auditions and they tried to choose actors that weren't awful, but weren't good.
right,
So they had that 50s vibe.
right,
Because if you think about it, a lot of these sci-fi movies, whether it's The Blob, no offense to Steve McQueen, but whether it's The Blob or Them or any of these
Right.
big fucking, like
Tarantula. And, yeah.
Tarantula, the
Deadly
acting
Menace.
isn't, yeah, the acting is not good. They're trying
Right.
their damnedest, but they don't care. It's like the Roger Corman stuff. He says, "Okay, I'm just picking you because we got to go film in 5 minutes," type of thing. So I think they're
And they're
not being
affordable.
bad. Yeah, I don't think they're being bad on purpose. I don't think they're awful performances, other than the Terenti brothers. They're a little too childish for me, but that's just personal taste.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's kind of a nod to those 50s and 40s and 50s sci-fi movies to not have the best actors, and you're relying more on the monsters. You go to those
Right.
movies, you want to see the Blob. You don't go for Steve McQueen. You go to
Right.
those movies, you want to see the giant tarantula. You go to the
Yeah.
movies, you want to see the killer clowns. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's
Exactly.
that's my take on it.
Right. Because Dave, to me, Dave is so it's so charming how bad because when he's standing there going, and I don't remember what he's saying there in the police station. But Officer Dave steps in there and he's telling him, but he's telling Mooney some shit or something,
Yeah,
and he's
because
right there going, and I'm not gonna have it. You're gonna have to deal with me, pal. And all this kind of stuff. I thought that was just, and it's part of the charm of it. I
mm-hmm.
thought he was extra cheesy, and
Yeah.
it almost seems like it was on purpose to me.
Yeah,
You
I don't
know?
think the acting is bad per se, but the cheese factor is definitely there. You know what I mean? What makes a sandwich good? You throw some melted cheese on that fucking sandwich. You know what I mean? That's what this movie is. You know what I mean? It's got a little bit that makes everything better.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully everybody enjoys it. You know damn well I'm going to enjoy it and
Hmm.
do my usual discussing of it and everything else. Um, Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, man.
Absolutely,
Like I
dude.
said, I get kind of worked out good for you to do this film rather than Aliens because I'm sure
Hmm.
you talked about Alien 100 times.
Yeah,
You know, so yeah, Mike did that one. You did this one. This thing that we were talking about was just ask Eric. What, a year later, I'm finally doing it. But I told you one day I would do it. Thank you,
hey,
thank you so much, man.
oh, always glad to be here, man. Always glad to help and be part of the show.
Cool. Thank you. Everybody go sub to Hey Internet Eric here. He's one of my best friends on here. He is probably my top mentor. I definitely was inspired with everything he did, and just how much fun he has. Thanks again, man, and I'll catch you soon.
Absolutely appreciate it. Take care, everybody. Cheers.
Yeah, you too.